There are stretches in our photography when our work doesn't feel clear. We're paying attention. We're thinking about the feelings in our images. We may even be making technically good photographs, and yet something still feels unsettled. When that happens, it's easy to assume we're behind, that we've stalled. We start wondering why we aren't further along by now, or we begin doubting the kind of photography we've chosen to create. And the problem is that when we misread this moment, we don't just feel discouraged. We often start making decisions that quietly pull us away from the work that actually matters to us. That assumption is often the real problem, and it can be a creativity killer. One of the mistakes we photographers make is assuming that uncertainty means something is wrong. If our work doesn't feel decisive, it can start to feel like we're unprepared, or worse, like we're incompetent, like we don't quite belong. When the work doesn't resolve quickly, it can feel like we're stuck and without direction. This is important to understand. Uncertainty arrives before clarity, not after it. It's what it feels like when direction is forming but hasn't announced itself yet. And that's a normal part of the creative process, even if it doesn't feel comfortable while we're in it. Early on, recognition usually comes before language. We learn to point at food before we're able to say the word hungry. Photography works much the same way. We notice certain light, certain spaces, or certain types of compositions. There's a pull towards them, even if we can't explain it. Even if we know we've been influenced by others' work we admire, that pull still matters. This state can feel uncomfortable, especially in a culture that rewards confidence and visible progress, and then reflects it back at us in constant bursts through social media. Most photographers are taught to value resolution like finished work and clear visual statements. That makes sense. But the part of the process that comes before that rarely gets much attention. The part where we're still learning how to listen to our own thoughts and responses. That phase doesn't feel productive. It hasn't produced measurable results yet, so it's often mistaken for falling behind. But that's where our own direction quietly takes shape. When this phase gets misread, overcompensation usually follows. We often rush and make more photographs than necessary. We edit too quickly. Sometimes technique becomes the focus of our images. Sometimes novelty does. Guilty on all counts. Our hope is that confidence will follow the flurry of activity, that somewhere in the scurry clarity will appear, and occasionally it does. More often, however, the work ends up feeling thin, at least to us. Technically sound, yes, but disconnected from whatever made it feel necessary in the first place. That isn't a failure of photographic skill. It's a problem of emotional timing. There's an important difference between hesitation and readiness, between avoiding our work and preparing for it, between being stuck and being early. Early doesn't feel exciting. It feels anticipatory and unresolved. It's like arriving at a store we thought was open, only to realize it won't open for another hour. Now, what are we supposed to do? That moment can feel frustrating, but it isn't a deficit in our thinking. One of the most useful skills we can develop as photographers is learning to recognize when our work is asking for patience instead of action. Not the kind of patience that checks out, like sitting in a busy waiting room, but the kind that stays present, observant, and alert. When we're in that state, the challenge isn't to produce something convincing, it's to notice what keeps holding our attention and why. Why are we creating this photograph? Which images stay with us after we lower our camera? Which scenes feel unfinished instead of disappointing? Which photographs keep pulling the camera back up to our eye even when the reason isn't clear? Those are creative signals. They aren't instructions yet, but they matter. this becomes even more important with experience. Experience brings a different kind of pressure, the sense that clarity should arrive faster by now, that uncertainty belongs earlier in the process. I find that often the opposite is true. As sensitivity deepens, tolerance for easy answers decreases. Images that once felt satisfying can start to feel less interesting. What we want begins to shift from photographs that work to photographs that feel necessary. That raises the bar. And when the bar rises, the distance between recognition and resolution often grows. It's not regression. It's refinement in our expectations. This video isn't an argument for endless waiting, and it isn't a defense of indecision. Photography does eventually demand that we act. It asks for our commitment and for letting our work go into the world. But timing matters. Learning to tell the difference between not ready yet and incapable protects us from unnecessary doubt, and it protects our work from being rushed into a shape that hasn't matured. There's something encouraging about understanding this patience phase for what it is. It gives us permission to slow down without losing our momentum, to think without punishing ourselves for it, trusting that attention itself counts for something substantial and important. Waiting in this sense isn't about fear. It's about allowing our ideas and feelings to clarify into images. And clarity doesn't flourish when it's under false pressure. When we look back at photographs that still matter to us, most of them weren't made quickly. They were preceded by a stretch of uncertainty, a stretch where nothing felt fully developed, but something unformed was already pulling at us emotionally. At the time, that felt inefficient and uncertain. With distance and retrospect, it feels essential. So if things feel a little undefined right now, if attention is present but conclusions aren't, there's another way, an important way, to read that moment. If we misread it, we risk rushing towards solutions that don't really fit us. If we respect it, we give our work the space to become what we actually want it to be, work in which we can be proud. So, when these feelings show up, it doesn't mean we're behind. It often means we're in that part of the creative process where our direction is still forming, just before the image begins to announce itself. So remember, when we have these feelings, we are not behind. We are in the part of the creative process where our direction is forming just before the final image announces itself. That isn't something we need to fix or push through or beat ourselves up about. It's a phase we can recognize and bring into our desire to create and share. Photography isn't only about moving forward, technically or artistically. Photography can also be about staying in the moment long enough to understand what we're moving toward and why it matters to us. 2 questions are usually enough to bring us back. Why am I making this photograph? How does it make me feel? And if that's where we are right now, there's nothing wrong with that. We're definitely not behind. We're still figuring something out. And very often, that's where our work that matters actually begins. I'm Ken Evans. Thanks for spending this time with me.